So back with Ryan Rizicki, we're here 5 years later, and the first time that we shot for his first fight with a Boken in Hamilton when he won the Canadian title. Fast forward 5 years later, you're now fighting for the world title. Tell us the story.
Second world title fight.
Second world title fight, but in your weight class.
Yeah,
right.
This one was earned. I had to fight tooth and nail and climb up the ranks, like by fighting the best fighters they put in front of me. And then the last year, I beat two top contenders, and yeah, it's been crazy. 5 years. I mean, the amount of wars I had inside those 5 years, and memorable fights and title fights, and it feels a lot longer than 5 years. I'll say that.
Definitely, it's been a crazy road the last 5 years, and now we're about starting to get 7 weeks out for your fight, and we thought it would be fun to stop here and just kind of reminisce of the first time we ever shot and that Canadian title. Yep. When you fought a Boken for that Canadian title, if you could put your mindset back to that time 5 years ago, did you think you were going to be fighting for a world title?
No, I didn't think I'd be fighting for a world title. I always knew I was going to do something, because I knew that people like to see exciting fights, and I know my fights are going to be exciting, win or lose. So yeah, but I remember when I'm thinking back to that Boken fight, because at the time I was 7-0 and he was 8-0, and I was a little bit of an underdog for a lot of people in Canada. They thought that it was a little too soon for me, given that I had a losing amateur record and very little experience there going into the pros. And he talked the talk, that guy, and I think he had me and everybody else convinced that I didn't belong in there with him for a short period of time. But I remember the closer the fight got, then I got more confident. And when I got in the ring, I just remember him underestimating me. I knew that was going to be his downfall. I think I said it in an interview before. I said that was his critical mistake. And he wanted to feel the power, and he felt it.
That was also a big breakout fight too. That was your first fight under the Three Lions promotions, and your first showing in Hamilton, which has adapted you as kind of a spot too between Cape Breton and Hamilton too. One of my favorite moments in my life was that fight, and leading up to the fight, meeting you and kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. But that was quite the fight.
Quite the fight, and the way it ended was just like, I'm surprised that didn't go, didn't get seen by more people, because what a knockout. I remember I hit him with the right hand, and I just remember him just standing there and thinking to myself, like, here you go, you want to find out about it. And he found out. I remember his head kind of went down and disappeared for a second. He folded like a lawn chair. His head was right underneath I think it was like tucked underneath his chest, looking like it broke his neck. I knew that fight was over as soon as the punch landed.
It was one of the most devastating knockouts I've ever seen, and if more people seen it in boxing history.
I got some violent knockouts, and I think after I become champion of the world, that's when all those those brutal knockouts, people start to look back and find them and see them, and they'll realize that I've been doing this a long time.
Definitely. Really starting to ramp up camp now. How are we feeling?
I'm feeling good. I trained yesterday. I trained with Lucas and Josh, two pros at the gym, and those guys are, one's a lightweight and one is I think he fights welterweight. Is there a division above welterweight? 154, I believe. So
soup's welterweight and then super welterweight.
Yeah. So he's like around there. It's like the size of like a middleweight, and both them guys are crazy good conditioning, and they've both been in camp where I wasn't. And yesterday we kind of trained side by side, and I realized that I'm just as fit as them, and I'm maintaining a pace at 200 pounds that these guys have in the lower weight divisions. So that's a good sign, given that it's 8 weeks out. I still got 8 weeks to sharpen things up and get even in better condition. Because the fight's going to be a 12-round fight, and I know that Noel likes to move. He likes to hold, and I could be wrong. Maybe he's going to stand there and fight, and make it a quick night for me, but I think it's going to be I'll have to do a lot of work to slow him down. And to do that, I got to be in crazy condition to do that.
When you won the mandatory and you knew now that the next step for you was going to be Noel and the world title, how'd that feel?
Nah, man, I really don't make much of it, to be honest. Like, it's just another fight right now to me. I know it's the world title, I know it's big, but so when I got into boxing and when I turned professional with an amateur record of 10 wins and 12 losses. I lost every fight I had on even a national level. I couldn't even get past nationals. So when I turned professional, there was nobody see me as a prospect. Nobody see me as somebody who was going to go on a winning streak like I did and get to where I got. But so when I had my first professional fight, I think I fought for like $500, I think it was. And then after I paid the coaches and everything else and gas to get to the fight and back, and I didn't make nothing. So it was like that for the first I believe maybe 7-8 fights. And then I wasn't looking like I was going to be a world champion, but I was showing potential, and then just fight after fight, I start to see improvements, and everybody else does. My coach Stevie, and then when I got that fight against Oscar Rivas, I think that was when I showed that I can actually be a world champion. I can not just hang in there with champions, but beat them.
As we go through this kind of docu-series before the world title fight, I'll tell you every one of your fights is exciting. But ones that were breakout moments was Abokan, Hatag, Oscar Rivas, Alante Green.
And I had that one fight against Silvera Lewis that kind of flew under the radar.
Oh, you know what? That did. Good point. But you know what was so good about that one too? Not the fight was amazing, but it was also because it was during COVID and it was such an intimate setting with 30 of our friends in a room watching.
It was in a gym, right?
It was in a gym in BC. That one does get overlooked a lot, right?
Well, that fight was a battle. That was
a war.
That was an absolute war. He had me hurt. I had him hurt twice. Knocked him out eventually with the right hand, but that guy was in there to win that night. I remember that.
Yeah.
And he
came to run it, right?
That was my last Canadian title defense, and before I went and started fighting for the higher up ranked belts, but. He did not want to lose that night. He wanted his belt back. He was a former champion, and he was fighting the guy that was holding his old belt, and he wanted it back that night. And
he took the fight on a couple of days' notice too. So respect to he saved that event, right?
He was coming off that fight he had against Oscar Rivas, the second fight against Oscar Rivas, and so he was in good shape and stuff, but. That fight. I think that fight ended up setting up the Rivas fight. Yeah. So again, good point that you brought that up. I overlooked that fight too. So it was a serious.
Because but that set up the Rivas fight and everything. So.
Yeah.